Lost Ark. We have a short video for you today that is incredibly important, not only for players waiting to become part of our community, but for every community across every server. As you undoubtedly have noticed by now, numerous servers have become locked from character creation due to populations just being maxed out, a few times reaching upwards of 6 to 8 hours on some specific servers. While we don't personally agree with this choice, since this massively isolates and fractures communities that had plans to play together, we understand the team has to do what they have to do to keep the rollout as smooth as possible. And frankly, to their credit, this has been one of the better launches of an MMO, in our opinion. So let's get to the huge news here. Because the servers are locked for the foreseeable future and systems for server transfers are not in place within Lost Ark at this point, a new system is being put in place for founders until 12 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. UTC on Monday, February 14th. I repeat, this will only be the case until February 14th. Long story short, all founders packs redeemed on any server before the 14th will reward a second instance of that pack to your product inventory. The first instance of your founders pack that you've claimed before the 14th are tradable and marketable. The second instance awarded after the 14th will not be tradable or marketable. This is of course an attempt to maintain region-wide economy integrity. This means you can go play on any server, enjoy all of your packs, and then if servers do reopen their character creation, such as ours on Regulus, and you want to move, you still have access to your founders content if you don't claim that second instance until you move servers. This also means all players who are content with their server choice will just essentially get double rewards. To see exactly what you'll be getting in your roster inventory, check out the official post here. So TLDR, claim your founders content before February 14th. There is a full list of all the items you can see on that blog post. Of course, all of this information was confirmed by Roxanne, the community manager, on the official Play Lost Ark forums, clarifying that every single player redeeming these before the 14th will get to claim that second instance. So this isn't just us reading between the lines. Just a small note, the 30-day Crystalline Aura is not being included in any redemption. We do have a video that we just put out the other day talking about an icebreaker pack on the Lost Ark store. So if you're looking for a great deal, check out that video. Many of you want to dive back into the game as well, but I did want to say hey there friends, it's Kodiak here. Welcome back to Legacy Gaming and welcome back to Lost Ark. I've got a short video for you all today. I'm still grinding away and I know you are too, but I wanted to make sure everyone is aware of what's going on right now in the Lost Ark store. Now real talk, Livid and I will never ever push you guys to buy something with your own money from an in-game store. We're not going to say this is a must buy, but if you are someone that's willing to spend some money and you're looking for actual gameplay value, then listen up, because right now on the Lost Ark store is something truly nutty. We've talked about the Crystalline Aura before, specifically in our pay-to-win video we released a while back. So I would definitely recommend you start there because that's what I'm talking about today. It directly correlates with that premium service. In a nutshell, the Crystalline Aura is a premium service, which means you pay real money, or crystals in this case, and you get a series of buffs. Now, we've been clear on this before. The Crystalline Aura has a lot of value. It cuts down on triport and ocean liner costs, gives you additional Bifrost slots, expands the functionality of your stronghold. It's a really solid set of benefits that makes playing the game a bit more convenient. At a baseline, the Crystalline Aura costs 420 crystals, or $10 US. If you go to the store, it's not exactly that easy to hit that 420 number. You can buy 400 crystals for 940 royal crystals, or 200 crystals for 470 royal crystals. What I'm getting at is that it's not exactly straightforward. And let's be frank here, that's by design. What's definitely not clear is this deal, smacking us right in the face, sitting there amongst the rest of the offerings. And that, my friends, is what I want to talk about. I'm talking about this right here, this level complete pack, level 50. This is a bundle that costs 1,100 royal crystals, or roughly $11. What the bundle contains, however, is 2,600 crystals. So do the math. You can buy 400 crystals for 940 royal crystals, or you can buy this bundle for pretty much $1 more and get 2,600 crystals. It actually makes no sense why it's so disproportionately cheap, but I'm not complaining. For the sake of understanding, realize that you don't get all 2,600 crystals at once. You only get a fraction of them per every 10 levels you hit. That's why it's called a level complete pack. But once you reach 50, you'll have access to all 2,600 crystals. For every 10 levels you gain 520 crystals. To wrap around, let's look back at that Crystalline Aura. Remember, this costs 420 crystals. So again, if you do some math, we can easily scoop up 6 months of the premium service, again, the Crystalline Aura, for $11. Again, guys, I'm not in the business of pressuring you to buy anything you don't want to. I don't get paid by Smilegate. Amazon isn't slipping me free shipping for life to say this. It's just a good deal. And if you plan on playing Lost Ark long term, 6 months of Crystalline Aura is a no-brainer. Can you survive without it? Yeah, of course you can. But if you're...
What's going on, guys? Vulcan here, and today I have a really quick video for you that's going to give you 6 months of Crystalline Aura and save you about 50 bucks. Now, mileage is going to vary a little bit on that 50 depending on where you live, but $50 is what I was able to save. So before we dive too far in, you might be wondering, what is Crystalline Aura, especially if you've never played the game or haven't been following it. So Crystalline Aura is their opt-in subscription service. It does give some pretty good benefits. You can save on things like ocean liners, which is a trap.
This is a one-time grant, and
all enemies within the AoE will be marked, meaning anything that hits them while marked will amp that damage by an additional 10%. Finally, Pain Brand, which will make the damage that each pulse increases go from 12.5% to a massive 60%. Like I said, this skill absolutely melts enemies. Heavenly Tune is another essential ability that from initial first glance seems like a purely group-oriented skill, with its ability to increase attack speed by 8% and MP recovery by 40% for 8 seconds for all party members in a 24-minute AoE, in addition to its decent burst damage. Now this, however, isn't why we take it. The real bonus is in the tripods: Quick Prep, Courageous Tune, and Intense Tune. Quick Prep shaves off 3 seconds from a massive 30-second cooldown. A small amount, but 3 seconds is 3 seconds. Courageous Tune makes it so all enemies hit by your AoE do 30% less damage, and against larger elites and bosses, this is invaluable to both the solo player and a group. Last up, and the real reason why we max this skill out, is Intense Tune. This will increase all party members' attack power by 15% of the caster's default attack power, and as a bard, this means all of your other abilities for the next 8 seconds deal increased damage. This will amp your big hitting skills like Soundholic, Dissonance, and Stigma. The last skill that we're maxing out is Wind of Music. Its base effect is really nothing to write home about, just doing some minor AoE damage and pushing enemies back. Jumping straight into the tripods, however, shows us why we use this skill through pickups like Quick Prep, Melody Increase, and Wind of Protection. Now Quick Prep shaves 2 seconds off an 18-second cooldown. Melody Increase gives us an extra 150% Serenade meter generation every time we cast this ability, which we'll be doing quite a lot. And finally, Wind of Protection, which will grant you and all party members hit by the AoE a shield that can absorb damage up to 25% of their max HP. With that last tripod, hopefully the value is abundantly clear. Finally, let's touch on the 3 remaining skills that are great pickups for only 4 points invested into each. Sonic Vibration is another immensely useful skill that, as I just mentioned, doesn't need more than 4 points to prove how useful it is. It provides you with a solid utility, weak point damage, and AoE control, both solo and in a group. After a short cast duration, foes will be lifted at the target location, dealing moderate damage, followed quickly by slamming them back down to the ground for high damage, leaving behind an AoE that also does additional tick damage for 3 seconds. For tripods, we simply take Protective Vibration. When your orb slams down, you will gain a decent sized shield for 3 seconds, but also increase the damage of the skill by 5% up to 30% for each enemy that's caught in the AoE. This gives the bard a bit more breathing room in fights, while also chunking down a large group of enemies in the process. Now we pick up Soundwave simply for the quick enemy knockback if you're getting pushed into a corner with low stagger. With only 4 points of investment into excellent mobility, you also gain one of your only ways of being a little more mobile on the field. This will make it so the bard moves away from the casting position of Soundwave by 4.5 meters, giving you either a quick dodge or a way to put some distance between you and your enemy. Finally, Sound Shot. This skill is great just for poke damage on larger enemies, as you fire on an orb of light that explodes on impact, dealing moderate damage to both the target and any enemies in a small AoE. For the tripod, I personally prefer Maintain Explosion, as the orb of light will now leave behind debris upon explosion that lingers for 2 seconds, dealing an additional 30% damage to enemies that are in it. It's great chip damage on a low 6-second cooldown that also gets the benefit of Heavenly Tune. Once you unlock your awakening abilities, you have an important choice to make. Which of the 2 spells do you take with you to tackle mobbing content? Now Oratorio, which in addition to dealing a massive amount of AoE holy damage, lowers enemy crit resistance by 12% against attacks from all party members. And when it comes to boss DPS checks later down the road, it's clear why this skill is valuable. Symphonia, on the other hand, is a better awakening skill for clutch saves and fights, as it grants a shield to every ally within 12 meters that absorbs damage equal to 100% of your max HP. It also does great burst damage, lowers enemy attack power by 30%, enemy attack speed by 20%, and enemy move speed by 40%, all for 10 seconds. It also completely fills one of your Serenade bubbles, which is useful for when you need that resource generation in a pinch. Now both are incredibly potent abilities, but for me, I choose Symphonia almost every time. Now that we've covered the mobbing build, let's shift focus and talk about the group support build. Again, a support build is meant to dedicate more resources to keeping you and your party alive through almost anything, as long as everyone is mindful of their positioning. Now let's quickly go over the skills that we are keeping from the mobbing build and their tripod layouts, so it's quick and easy for you to see. Wind of Music keeps Quick Prep, Melody Increase, and Wind of Protection, as it's an essential shielding skill that also generates Serenade meter. Heavenly Tune comes over with a slight change, instead using Quick Prep, Tough Tune, and Intense Tune. Instead of the 30% attack power decrease on mobs, we're opting for an 8% increase to attack speed to help both your DPS characters pump out more damage and increase spell casting speed. Sonic Vibration, a personal favorite of mine, gets its entire tripod tree this time around, opting for a Protective Vibration, Brilliant Wave, and Wide Angle Attack. This allows us to not only give ourselves a shield in a pinch, but now has a 40% larger area of effect and provides a 15% attack power buff to all party members that enter either the Vibration or the Aftermath area for 2 seconds, which is perfect for when you see a DPS character charging up a hard-hitting attack. Just drop this right near them and let them go to work. Soundholic we unfortunately downgrade to its first tier tripod, Sound Concentration, which still gives us decent damage boost for when we need just a little bit more damage in the group. Since this is the bard's hardest hitting spell, if you personally want more damage, swapping the point spread between Sonic Vibration and Soundholic is a perfectly acceptable solution, especially if the bard needs to contribute more damage throughout a fight. As you get more skill points later on, I would certainly recommend maxing this skill out as well. Dissonance we also downgrade to 1 tripod, Melody Increase. This gives us a way to keep a ticking damage ability on enemies or bosses consistently, and allowing our Serenade meter to continuously generate resources. The last 3 skills in our support build are new additions entirely. The first 2 being essential, and the third is swappable for an alternate ability depending on your situation. Guardian Tune is an ability that you get when unlocking your first Awakening, and it's an essential support skill that at a base level provides a 30% damage reduction to all party members within a 24-meter radius for 8 seconds. I don't think I need to emphasize how good that already is. For tripods, we max this out and take Tenacity, Endless Protection, and Wind of Protection. Tenacity ensures that you don't get staggered for basic attacks while casting this ability, as it becomes crucial to get off in a pinch. Endless Protection further ups the defensive nature of the spell by making it so when the buff expires after its full duration, the players affected will also receive a shield with a capacity of 15% of their max HP for an additional 8 seconds. And if that wasn't enough, Wind of Protection makes it so when Guardian Tune is cast, it will also completely block a debuff modifier, allowing your team to negate effects completely, almost like a preemptive purge. Next up, Rhythm Buckshot has you pull the string of your harp to deal moderate damage and knock foes away from you in a frontal cone. For tripods, we simply take Melody Increase to generate more Serenade meter each time this skill is used. This, however, isn't why we picked this skill up. As a support in hard content, you will often need an assist in countering enemy attacks to open up damage windows for your team or prevent mechanics altogether. With a 16-second cooldown, this enables the Bard to counter mechanics and contribute to weak point damage instances. It's a vital ability to both have and learn when to use. As I mentioned earlier, this last spell can be swappable with one that comes directly after this. Rhapsody of Light is one of the few spells that needs the Bard to remain stationary to cast. At a base level, Rhapsody of Light merely does 3 ticks of moderate damage in an AoE. It's with the tripods that this skill becomes an offensive buff and a quick save mechanic. For tripods, we take Quick Prep, Note Brand, and Shining Protection. Now Quick Prep just shaves 2 seconds off a 24-second cooldown. Note Brand makes it so that if this attack is hitting an enemy, you mark that target for 3 seconds, and all incoming damage is increased by 10% from all party members. Shining Protection, however, is the real reason that we use this skill. This will reduce your outgoing damage by 50%, but reduce incoming damage on the Bard by 50% as well. As for your party members, this will reduce incoming damage to them by 75% for 3 seconds, and grant them a shield equal to 10% of their max HP. Like I said, this can absolutely save your party. If you personally aren't finding great use out of Rhapsody of Light, consider using Harp of Rhythm instead, primarily in single target boss fights. Here you will summon a stationary harp that functions basically like a turret, firing musical notes at targets within 14 meters of it. As a base level skill, it's nothing to write home about, but once again, the tripods make this skill incredibly useful. Here we take Summoning Will, Melody Increase, and Note Brand. This 24-second cooldown skill with Summoning Will provides you with a harp that remains on the field for 14 seconds, leaving it with only a 10-second downtime. And while it's on the field, Melody Increase will make it generate Serenade meter resources every second, making this a super consistent way to fill those bubbles up. Additionally, Note Brand, the same effect that Rhapsody of Light provides, will continuously be applied to the target, meaning you could potentially have between 14 to 16 seconds of 10% damage increase for your entire party and remain mobile. Like I said, it's incredibly useful, but more on the aggressive side of things. And just like that, Support Bard's skill build is complete with options. While I won't spend a ton of time talking about the additional spells the Bard has access to, I think they're worth pointing out and at least explaining why we don't need to use them. Conviction Core is a purely offensive skill where you surround yourself with a few energy cores. Now if you get near a target, they explode doing damage. Even though Bards are fairly aggressive with their positioning, most of the time you'll be trailing your party or avoiding the boss to save a teammate. These do great damage, but your opportunity to be up close to an enemy isn't a common occurrence. Prelude of Storm calls that a bunch of lightning pillars where you're standing that stuns enemies for 3 seconds and deals damage. Once again, this is in the same vein as the previous skill, aggressive and a bit out of place, but the stun can be valuable in a PvP situation with tripods set to make it a directional ability. Note Bundle will either send out a single instance or a group, depending on your tripod pickups, that deal low damage and reduce movement speed. It can be used to damage buff and reduce incoming damage, but it's a skill shot with relatively slow travel time. You don't want inconsistency with perks like that, which is why we kind of avoid this. Prelude of Death has you remain stationary, dealing AoE damage to enemies and inflicting Death's End on them, which can assist in bursting a single enemy at random. It's not super consistent, keeps it from moving, and has a high cooldown. And while I personally don't like this skill in PvE content, it is fantastic in PvP with tripods, as you can fear your opponent and get an extra damage. Finally, we have March, which leaves behind a trail of nodes as you move, attacking nearby targets and potentially increasing your own crit rate and move speed. Now in reality, when used, they feel incredibly weak, and the buffs to your move speed are barely noticeable while channeling the skill in PvE content. In PvP, however, this can be an effective zoning skill while your other abilities are on cooldown. As I mentioned before breaking down all the skills, the Bard's special class resource comes in the form of the Serenade meter, obtained through using skills and dealing damage to enemies. Ultimately, this gives you access to 2 core abilities for the Bard. Serenade of Courage is a team-wide buff that increases the damage of the Bard and all party members by either 5, 10, or 15% depending on how many meters are filled. Serenade of Salvation, on the other hand, is a potent, ticking burst heal for all party members that stand in the AoE by either 4, 6, or 8% over 14, 18, or 24 seconds, depending on how many meters are filled. As I mentioned throughout the build guides, tripods that provide melody increase can greatly speed up this resource generation. Your identity skills are essential tools for the Bard, providing your team with on-demand damage buffs for damage checks, or an area form of healing when potions and shields aren't enough. Each needs a firm understanding of encounters and your team to know when you'll need to use them. Getting comfortable with the Bard certainly takes practice, especially being a support. You'll need to understand other classes' attacks, their big DPS windows, and know when to save teammates and prevent damage. One of the most important things that I think we can talk about here includes spell rotations and spell combos. The Mobbing build is the best place to do this, since the concepts while leveling easily carry over to both offense and defensive playstyles going forward. Heavenly Tune should always start any damage-focused rotation, because it amps all of your following spells for 8 seconds.
What's up, the best gamer?
Now follow this up with Dissonance straight into Stigma. These will run their course, ramping up their damage, and finish just around when your 8-second damage buff ends. Now right before it ends though, if you have time to weave Sound Holic in, you'll cap off all of your damage abilities on either a pack or a single target for massive damage. Now once that burst window is done, focus on buffing teammates or evading enemies till Heavenly Tune is back online. During this time is the perfect opportunity to rotate between either Sonic Vibration or Sound Wave to keep enemies at bay, applying Wind of Music whenever you or a teammate may be in need of a shield. Sound Shock is on such a low cooldown that you can use that whenever you need poke damage on enemies. Now on the support end of things, because you aren't focused on damage, you instead just need to pay attention for your team's DPS windows or instances that they might be in danger. If you've taken Harp of Rhythm over Rhapsody of Light, make sure to keep it and Dissonance up at all times for that constant 10% damage amp and Serenade meter generation. Then you'll focus on Sonic Vibration and Heavenly Tune for DPS windows, or Wind of Music and Guardian Tune to mitigate damage. Rhapsody of Light also slides right in here. Finally, Rhythm Buckshot should be reserved to counter a boss whenever they flash blue if you are close enough. Now with both of these builds, you need to keep with your team as close as possible, generally weaving between the threat and your teammates. The Bard essentially plays in melee range, even though it's a ranged class. Positioning and understanding mechanics is key to being a successful Bard, ensuring that you are staying alive and healthy to be able to focus that support on your team instead. Now this brings us to Engravings, and if this is your first time even hearing about Engravings, or you just want to understand them better, we have a handy guide here on the channel going over everything. Now you won't really experience these to their full potential until Tier 3 content, but going forward, you'll want to start working towards a few in particular. For your class engraving, Desperate Salvation provides additional burst heal to your Serenade of Salvation. The reason this is so good is that when you have one bar of your Serenade meter filled, it's more efficient to just use your heal with this engraving than waiting for a 2 or even 3 meter effect. Maxing this engraving to Tier 3 will give you a massive 24% max HP burst heal. Now for general engravings, Awakening is by far the most important for Awakening skill cooldown and uses. This allows you to get off your Awakening skill as much as possible, as this also helps you generate Serenade meter charges. Spirit Absorption is also important, as it increases your attack and movement speed by 15%, which can matter in a lot of close situations. Don't forget that attack speed also increases casting speed. Lastly, Extra alternative engravings that work amazingly on Bard are heavy armor for tankiness and max MP increase, as you can struggle with mana in later tiers. The Bard is easily one of the most fun and well-received support classes by players in Lost Ark. If you love to support your group and can get over the constant sound of harp chords every second, this class is insanely fun to play. A quick note at the end in terms of stat priority for a Bard, because as you get to endgame, this will matter on your armor. For a solo mobbing build, a 70-30 split in crit and swiftness will do you well. For group PvE content, you'll want a 70-30 split in swiftness and specialization. And for those that want a PvP, just as a side note here, 1000 agility, 249 endurance, and 1 crit will serve you well in the arena. I also want to say that there is no end-all be-all when it comes to building out your characters. Because of the sheer scope of the content and the constantly changing challenges, it's impossible to say what a meta build would be on any character because things are always going to vary based on the content. With that in mind, I encourage you to try out the builds that I outlined above. I think it will set you on the right direction for enjoying the character and tackling a majority of the content of the game. But don't be afraid to change things up. You may find that you enjoy the class that much more because you built it your own way. Regardless of what class you play, I want to welcome you all to join the Legacy Gaming Discord. We've already amassed a massive community of Lost Ark players, always down to play. You can check out the link in the description below to join up and learn more. If you've been following along with our Lost Ark coverage, then you already know we've got a whole lineup of content coming your way. Be sure to like this video and subscribe if you want to support the channel and help other people find our videos. Finally, if you
So new MMOs can be very overwhelming.
Make it quick. There you go. Alright, you can come in next.
Can you get us from here? What can I have from here?
We have peanut butter.
Oh, you sucker MC's got nothing on me.
No, I'm gonna say it, and I won't.